We're good to go.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education Policy Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, January 9th. The time is now 5:01 p.m. And with me this evening, I have board member Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig. And from Board of Education Cabinet, we have Ralph Valenzizi. With that being said, Mary Ellen, were you able to read the minutes? Were there any questions, changes?
No, I mean, I read the minutes thoroughly and everything looked good.
Me
Um,
too. I didn't find any discrepancies.
Mhm.
So I guess all in favor say aye. Aye.
I,
So minutes have been approved. Thank you. I did not see any public comments emailed, and I don't see anyone online. So thank you for that. And this evening, we'll be having discussions. We're going to review and possible action on the fundraising regulation. This is our third read through. And we will also do the review and possible action on enrollment in advanced course or program and challenging curriculum. So welcome everyone. I'm looking forward to hearing all this information this evening, and I will transfer the meeting over to Ralph.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Carpio, and good evening, Ms. Flaherty Ludwig. Great to see you guys. Mr. Pennington, our assistant superintendent of schools, will be joining us shortly to talk about the second policy, which is the one around credit. But we will just start off a little bit with the fundraising, if that's okay. I'd like to give you an update since the last time that we met. As Chairman Carpio had mentioned, we are on our third reading of this, and with that, prior to the holiday break, I took some time to send out a second survey for the follow-up, as we had mentioned that we would do so.
yes,
Received two responses from the PTAs with some additional changes and stuff that we've actually incorporated that I'll show you in just a moment. And we also updated the exemption list because that was another question that was on
right.
the survey. So we'll be able to kind of show you what it looked like, and then kind of what we want to do now is at least as the draft. With that too, though, I did have a chance to speak with one of our PTA, PTOC reps, Nadine, and we had a really good conversation around, hang on one second. Apologize about that. I think Rob's just trying to get in. We had a really good conversation talking about the whole process of the fundraising policy. And through that whole process, I think that it was good to hear that she understood that we are actually, trying to show people what we're really working on, and that we're making sure that it's accessible, and that it really wasn't kind of like a stamping it and moving it on, which I think Chairman Carper, you made that really clear. Many times there's a lot of pre-work that goes into a lot of these areas and before getting to this point. But especially with this, it's something that we wanted to make sure that we looked at. We made edits. We made it some continual edits. And one of the things that came out of the conversation too, though, is I believe the PTOC is just in the process of reorganizing themselves. But once they do, what we want to do is have representatives there. We have a representative from the board on the PTOC, but then also, potentially someone, and my other hat is with partnerships, of just potentially just showing up and being available during their meetings, their monthly meetings, so that then I can actually, help with that communication piece. Because sometimes the communication ahead of time would also help with them that process.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I think, overarchingly, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that would be a logical item to bring up, annually as a good example is this exemption list when you see it. Every year we should, over the summer, be able to bring this exemption list into play so that then they can see it, we can make any edits and bring that back quickly, say, hey, listen, we deleted these types of items because we don't use them as fundraisers anymore, and we wanted to add this instead, or change the, change the language around them. So I think that that kind of a process will help to kind of continually build just stronger communication. So I know that that's one thing that we want to do. The other thing that was mentioned, which I think actually would be my recommendation, is as soon as we get this regulation into play, understanding that, that with the PTOC getting themselves into process, when would this actually start to be implemented? And we implement it for the 25-26 school year. So, we get everything out organized right now. We agree to this is where we're going, but we actually start the implementation over the summer and stuff. And that way it'll allow for some conversations, training, it allows us to be able to kind of develop that form so that we can share it with the PTOC, say, hey, does this Google form work for you to be able for an approval process? And do we need anything more than that? Then they can also share that with their PTAs and stuff so that there's good communication. So overarchingly, it was a great conversation that we had. I think that, out of that, there were just a couple of little edits that were made into the document. And so let me just share it with you real quick so we can kind of go through these two. So if you can see the document now, the main areas were sometimes we did have to change that this changed automatically to organization. It should be still school sponsorship. And we talked about removing the word sponsor. The most important thing that we saw is this highlighted area right here when it came to crowdfunding activities. And the first thing that the PTAs were, I think, very concerned about was the way that it sounded, or the way that they were reading it, that potentially the PTA would have to be, in a sense, sponsoring anybody that's doing a crowdfunding activity. So one example that could be used is that if the band wanted to do some kind of crowdfunding activity, should the PTA be responsible for that? And they shouldn't be. It should still be an approval process, but that approval process is the same one that we just used for central office that we talked about. So that would be the approval process. That language was their biggest concern, was not so much that there necessarily was an approval that was, needed for the crowdfunding and understanding the stipulations, just that they didn't want to be responsible for anybody besides the PTAs being able to do it. So we've actually just changed the language and added in that it's just really very, very clear that any fundraising group must apply in writing to central office and receive prior approval before starting any crowdfunding. It's not to the sponsor.
So Ralph, you're not putting in any times, 2 weeks
the
before, or you just that it's required before.
Yes, yeah, prior approval. Yep.
That I like that.
Yeah. And everything else, like I said, I think there was a couple of grammatical things that I had in there. I think one of these twos actually had a 24 next to it instead of just a 2 weeks. So we made those corrections and stuff. But otherwise, I think we were really at the end. And then just the last thing that we added in is that there will be some kind of way of the PTAs just kind of like reporting out quickly, whether it's the form that they'll be able to attach, or that they can just say like what they were able to make. Those are the only two changes that occurred on the fundraising, regulation from the last read through. So otherwise, though, I think I believe we've actually made all the edits that we probably need to, and then, what we could do is just, I would say that this regulation is, if you guys agree, is pretty close to being ready to, move forward with in this coming year. Some of the things that would be attached to it as an addendum, and let me bring that up, will be the form at time. once that's created, and it'll be a straightforward form that we'll train the PTO in actually using over the summer when we implement it. But the last thing is the changes that they had asked for in the exemption list. And so what we did was, if you take a look at our exemption list, the first one that we shared out to them was this format. Okay, so take out the page one is actually the original right here. So we had them all as evening events, and some of the things they said is some of the things are redundant here. So is there a different way that we can kind of organize all of these events? And what we ended up coming up with is this version here instead. So there still is a couple categories which we figured would be easy for people to understand. One around evening events. So these are some of the examples. There may be some other ones that get added in over the summer. So it's a little bit more specific. Social events, school dances. We don't need to know what the names of every school dance is. If it's a school dance, we know that that's something that it makes sense for fundraising. Post-grad parties was something that the high schools, annual welcome back parties and stuff that happen at the schools as well. Those are the ones that kind of occurred. Some of the other events that we were able to consolidate, some of them had specific names on there. So I didn't get enough feedback to know whether or not something's needed to be kind of changed or tweaked, but otherwise, for the most part, these are a little bit more general categories. So like a play and talent show. It doesn't matter that it's a Nathan Hale talent show. It's just any play or talent show that we have within the district. So we were able to clean those up. We also made sure that any sales, once again, these are the typical sales that were out there, and we consolidated those into some simple topics. Fun runs, it doesn't matter what the name of the fun run is. It's just if it's a fun run, we know that's something that's actually considered an exemption. Trunk or treat was one that came up on a few, so we kind of I left that one in there as an option. There may be some other ones that we have here. Staff teacher appreciation events. We just there was a number of different things, names that people had for different areas. We just consolidated those into one. Typical festivals. The school store is something else, and basically raffles. Now, the one thing that I may need to change sooner or later is like I guess it's not a crowdsourcing, so the online raffle piece. But these were the options that we shared out with everybody, and we think that this should probably be what we share with the PTOC over the summer. From there, we would actually then ask them for any edits, and we can make those changes to the exemption list, and we should do that on an annual basis. I don't know if anybody has any questions around this at all, or
I have some questions.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Go ahead.
One of the questions is on one of the paragraphs, and you went through it kind of quickly. There was something about the health foods, that we're to offer healthy foods to our students while at school activities. And I just see a conflict in mentioning that because we have so many activities that clearly, if you're talking about Krispy Kreme event, that's not, it's fine to do. It's just, I'm wondering if we need to have that sentence in, the one about healthy foods.
Can we see it up again, Ralph, please?
Yep.
Ralph, are you I looked at it today. I'm not sure what page it was on.
Yeah, no. I'll pull it right back up.
I think it was in the beginning of But while we're at it, that's sponsored, is that going to go to school organization events, or is it going to stay school sponsored?
Well, no, when I kind of did the corrections very quickly, I actually changed it to organization. So that's why it's highlighted to show you that it is school sponsored events.
Yes, okay,
That's
that
what it's
makes
supposed to be.
perfect sense.
So that was actually a change from the last one. And that's where you're seeing the healthy foods. So we do have to, I think we do have to leave this in there because we can put exemptions in once again for these. That's why they're under the exemption list. But according to a lot of our health and wellness policy, we do have to make sure that we serve healthy foods unless we have that exemption that's there. So
okay, so I mean, can you see there's a conflict in practice that and understandably so, because we're trying to fundraise, people want foods that are really tasty. They may not be what are considered healthy foods and beverages. They might be sodas, they might be Krispy Kreme donuts. And so I guess let me zone in on what I'm saying. I can accept leaving it in.
I think
I'm saying it's a little conflicting when so many of our activities are not healthy foods.
Yeah, but I think that this is newer moving forward because of all the exemptions. Krispy Kremes, the concession stand, the cookies and things, those are all staying in. So for the way I understand it, is this is probably moving forward because of the health and wellness.
And it's also, when you look at those exceptions, if you take a look, it talks about school sponsored events. When you look at a lot of those Krispy Kreme event, a lot of those are either many are off school grounds, meaning like a pie sale. You're selling pies to be able to go home. And then secondly, the exemptions have always been like our stands at the football, any concession stands that we have, any concession stands or bake sales are usually at election day. So those are things that we're actually we're selling
non-healthy
to people that are actually coming in to vote and stuff or other things. So there's, like I said, so I think that the exemption list will allow us to kind of at least stick with the policy around really just trying to make sure that we're keeping our students healthy. But yet, knowing that there's going to be times when there's a sponsored event for a fundraiser that we can have that, it's called an exemption list.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, one part where this sentence is perfectly okay to me and consistent would be at a school store, because that's an ongoing place. The school store can't be selling candies and ice cream and soda when the cafeteria is not selling that.
Okay.
I mean, that's not a special event. A school store, you had it listed there as under the exceptions.
You know what? We can highlight that, circle that, and have Ralph discuss it more in detail.
Yeah,
but that makes sense. It was like Norwalk High has a school store.
Yeah,
there's a couple.
And maybe what I can do is actually, this may be something that wouldn't have to come back, but it's when I have it listed there as a school store, meaning that they're selling T-shirts and stuff. So, I mean, we can put in parentheses after school store, not, no, like disregarding snacks or the one way or another to explain that the school stores during the day should not have the snacks, which we don't sell at our school stores.
Yes, we don't. Yeah, so that's the one. All right, let that percolate a little bit.
Okay. Can we go back to the exceptions? I didn't see, and my question is the polar plunge or the air plunge for breast cancer. Would that fall under this regulation?
Let's see.
Exceptions? Because I know that it's an event, but I don't know if it's because the funds goes towards breast cancer that is not listed here.
No, no, we can definitely add it. I think it may not just have come across my my survey.
So that
So
would be under physical activity. And
Yeah.
it is a fundraiser,
Yeah,
the plunge.
it's actually tradition every year that they do it.
Just 1 second.
so under physical activities, I will add,
I forgot the exact wording of it.
but it's yeah, I will find out what it
Oh,
is.
yeah,
The polar plunge or so.
for cancer, something like that.
Okay. Yep, I can get more information definitely on that and add it in. Um, and once again, like I said, these are things that'll change probably from year to year
Hmm.
on this piece where the exemption list, we would probably share it once it goes to the PTOC with the policy committee and stuff, but I don't know, like yeah, I guess we have to just it's more of an FYI piece because
Right,
it's part
right.
of the regulation. So
No, but this list is a perfect example of, the PTOs and the PTA's concerns of
Mhm.
extra work for them when this right here shows so many different events and fundraising that have been year after year that are going to be exempt. So it's not going to create that extra work. But it also shows how hard the community works. The parents work for the schools and the children.
So
Mhm.
I should have, and thank you for bringing that up, Chairman Carpio, because that was part of the conversation as well, is having that information at the end of the year will actually show not only how do we, as a district, when we really talk about budget, we're always looking at grants and how much money we raise in grants and philanthropy, but our PTAs raise a lot of money for our students too, and that really should be captured in some way or another, that we can also reflect that to the community on the work that they're doing. So yeah, well, by all means, I mean, I think that makes sense. And when they did see this list, I do feel like, the feeling was, is there anything that we're kind of forgetting? Could have been just that. I guess a polar plunge would have to be at Norwalk High. So
Mm.
but yeah, we'd have a problem having it at Brian McMahon. But I think the it just may not have come up that
Mhm,
some of
mhm.
that in there.
Because there's so many things that the parents do. I was
Yeah,
just thinking the scholarships. Did I miss that one too? I know that I read through this list quickly, but I didn't see it.
yeah. I I don't think no, I don't think actually there was.
It's there. I saw it.
Where I missed it.
Okay, go other events, and it's under March Madness.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Okay,
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one question I have as we round this up, Ralph, is it clear that the parent group, when they're reporting at the end of the year, that they have a choice of using the form that we're going to make, or they could just hand their uh, tax form, a copy of their tax form?
What I'm gonna do is actually make it an online form so they just fill in a couple of fields, but then there'll also be an option for an attachment. If they just want to like upload the attachment, make it easier, that's fine too.
That's fine too. So I
Yeah.
think that would be appealing in presentation to me, that they're already doing the tax form, just make a copy and send it over.
Yep.
That in and sometimes when you think, oh, I have another form to fill, you haven't even looked at it yet. I just think that would be a good way to present how streamlined this is. There's a form, or if you already do a tax form, just send that a copy.
So Mary Ellen, that's actually part of that conversation was, in talking to, as a PTOC gets themselves, I think they're going through elections and getting organized right now. As
Okay.
a report during the summer really is the time where I would then, I'll join a PTOC meeting, I'll do a demo, show them how to use the form, have any questions, if there's any tweaks that have to be done there, and we'll actually get both of those things done, as well as look at the exemption list and see if there's anything at that point that's missing and stuff. And that would be easy enough to bring back to, to the policy committee real quick. These are a couple of the minor tweaks and stuff. But for the most part, though, I think, the regulation itself at this point, there was no other feedback that there needed to be any other tweaks to the language beyond the couple that I just shared.
Well, that's good. Plus it's, you took your time speaking to them, getting their feedback. This is our third read. So not a month and a half or 2 months?
Maybe 2 months.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it wasn't complete 3, but at least 2 months because we had a special meeting in there.
Yes, I would comment on the collaborativeness of this, really positive. My one question is, when I've heard you say feedback, have you, since there are 3 groups actually in this, there are the principals, the parent leaders, and then ourselves. Have you heard much from principals?
No, we will share a little bit more with them too. But once again, we're talking about implementing this now like I said, for the new school year. So
Right.
give us a little
There's-
bit of time to kind of share out
Fine.
now what the new policy, the new regulation looks like. Do you have any questions?
Right,
And then over the summer is really when to kind of talk to the PTOC again for one last.
right. And so it clearly it places the fundraising responsibilities on the parents, and but it can be facilitated by the principals.
Well, yeah, I think it actually places the onus of the yes, on the parents, meaning the PTAs. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
The parent organizations.
Yes. Yes.
PTO, PTA, both.
Okay, so
That's a good clarification.
So does that mean that because you will be speaking to them over the summer about this, do we still vote to move it forward, or do we hold it for that discussion for final for the beginning of the school year? Like, how does
My feeling, as long as if the board's okay with the idea of moving it forward at the beginning of the school year, we can just do it over the summer. This way, if there's any final changes you want to see, it's probably the exemption list is my guess, is that we may have a couple of little minor changes.
because
But
everything else was fine, right?
yeah, but it wouldn't be a big long talking point. It would just be something I'd bring up at policy
And
in
then we
August
can,
before we
okay.
start the school year.
All right.
So Diana, I agree with that thought that when we do present it to the board, it will be a finished product.
Yeah. Great. So I think that that ends my piece of the presentation for this. But so then we will bring this back up in August with any final tweaks. But I appreciate the help, and I've got to say, it's like I appreciate the work of the PTAs of giving us so much feedback on
Thoughtful feedback that you could really work with, and then remold and be clearer of what was the intent, which I think the best focus to me is how to go about the crowdsourcing, which is relatively new method of fundraising.
Yeah.
Protecting everyone involved.
Well, thank you, Ralph.
Ralph, great job.
I know.
Oh, thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Pennington, who's going to cover our second policy for tonight, which is enrollment in course or program, enrollment in advanced course or programming and challenging curriculum. So, Rob, you want me to share out my screen for you?
That would be great. Thank you, Rob. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob.
So one of our policies adopting the model policy for the state is tied to advanced course in programming and challenging curriculum. And this is a policy that we've had in some shape or form in our district. There are a couple pieces that I think is important that I would say they're optional, but I think that we should add them in. When we talk about advanced course, we're talking about honors, advanced placement, IB, dual enrollment, dual credit, AP courses. So I just think it's important that we are really providing these opportunities to our students in high school. Next week, when we talk about our program of studies, you are going to see that Norwalk High School has an expansive number of dual credit courses, and that's really been a focus area for the school. And so students will have an opportunity to take a course in high school where their high school teacher is an adjunct professor. And if they earn a certain score, they will also earn college credits from either UConn or Southern. And we've had courses like this at all of our high schools, but I think Norwalk High School is really focused in on providing more opportunities for their students so that they can leave high school with college credits that could then transfer into either 2 4-year degrees if they so choose. So really exciting. I obviously at Brian McMahon, they're an MYP school, and students are they have the diploma program, their certificate program, and that has been expanding at Brian McMahon. And CGS is in the process of they're a candidate school, so then they will become a certified MYP school as well. And at P-Tech, obviously, they have the early college enrollment program. So this really covers all of those programs for students. So one of the first pieces, Ralph, if you scroll down just a little bit and stop right there under the eligibility criteria, it talks about that the district identifies students in grades 8 and 9 who may be eligible. I feel that this optional piece we should leave in because we want all students to be able to have access throughout their high school career, even if a student is not identified in 8th or 9th grade. I know that we have students who request, and I think our goal is to provide all students opportunity and access. And so that is an area that I think we would want to keep. And I want thoughts, ideas.
No, I definitely agree with that, because that takes every single child into consideration for these classes, because not every child is outspoken, friendly, things like that. And you have that one child that is quiet in class but brilliant, and they may not shine because people don't see them because of their silence, but at the same time they should be able to have that conversation with their parents or with their counselors and say, I'm really interested in this class and I want to take it, and be able to register for that class even though, like you said, they weren't identified by someone to move forward with that class.
I also like this optional because to me it will step in if someone, for example, comes new to school at the end of 9th grade and they didn't go through that identification. So it's in 10th grade that they really like to take something, but we don't have they hadn't gone through that, so they can be looked at.
That's a good one, Mary Ellen, too, especially since enrollment is so fluid.
Yes.
Children moving in. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going multiple methods for students to have access. I think that's another key. Yep.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If we scroll down, Ralph, thank you.
Oh, definitely. So I'm keeping that in.
Yep. We have this connection here. I don't think that this optional piece I would recommend to keep in, where it says district administration identify additional criteria, including but not limited to. Actually, I like that piece, the second bullet point one. because we do have students and parents that request courses. And I think that it just, if a student is advocating to take an advanced course, the last thing I would want to do is tell a student, no, you can't take that course.
Yes, but there are in most areas I would agree. In math, it's a little more difficult to have, but this is an overall idea that one thing about this option is it says that they would have to, the district administration, this would be on you actually, Rob, you would have to identify specifically what you are looking for before the beginning or the commencement of the academic term. And so, am I hearing you saying that you might identify that one option is a student or parent request?
And right now, that is currently what the district has in place, is that a student can meet with their counselor and request to take an advanced placement course, an IB course. So there is that opportunity where they can say, we would like to take those courses. We have recommendations and we have different components, but in terms of if a student wants to take on a challenge, that is something that we will work with the student and family around.
Okay, so we're actually doing that right now. And so, yes, keep that in.
Correct. All right. Let's scroll on to the next one.
What about the first one? Do you agree with keeping the first one, Rob? The student prior academic performance? We already do that. Is that necessary to?
I mean, there are some pieces. I don't know if I'd necessarily feel we need to leave that in, but
Okay. So I'm not sure we need to leave that in either.
Okay.
I was on the fence on that one too, so
Great.
we can remove that.
Perfect.
And yeah, just so you know, sometimes when these are left in as we kind of pull these documents up from the model policies, these are options that are given to us. And this is the reason for having the conversations with Mr. Pennington to figure out what does make sense to keep and what doesn't. So.
Okay. The district will create an academic plan. We have the courses or programs offered, which is our program of study, the high school graduation, everything that we have. This ties back to our program of study that we talk about every year in January, and then it goes to the board for discussion. And that's work that happens every year in November and December with our high schools around building out courses and opportunities. And that's why I said I'm very excited to share some of the components that are tied to this year's program of study. So then our next section is guiding principles and implementation, and it says course access and academic planning should be guided by considerations beyond traditional course eligibility criteria. So it talks about academic achievement and engagement in middle school, our precursors for high school, engaging students, parents, and guardians throughout their experience. And I mean, I think that is a great opportunity. We talk about advanced courses program, wide range of courses, and I think our high schools really do a nice job of providing these opportunities for our students.
They definitely do. I've been to some of those meetings and presentations, and they do a wonderful job having these discussions with the families.
Right, and that is the policy.
That is the policy currently, and so
well, I mean, this conversation was to approve this policy. We've had an advanced program in our policies, Ralph. As long as I can remember.
Yes, we have.
And so this was just to go through the model policy with some optional adjustments and to bring it to for your consideration.
Can you go down? Does it have the date, the date on it? You know how some of them said that hasn't been reviewed since.
June 2023.
Okay. Yep.
So back up a little bit on that. This, maybe I'm getting things confused. Is there a second one we're going to look at after this?
No, this is the only one.
So reducing barriers to opportunities for advanced courses. The still really putting front of mind that students that are learning English are not excluded if they can if they can step up and achieve in that more advanced class.
And I think it also goes back to the wide range of advanced courses, not just offering advanced courses in English and social studies and math, but looking to provide opportunities in other mediums for advanced coursework. And so I'll give a little preview.
Yes.
In the theater program at Norwalk High, they're going to have a dual enrollment class that's up for proposal for next year. And so that's just another example that you can take this college level course in acting, so to speak, versus not just taking AP Lang,
I
AP
see what
Lang
you're
and
saying.
AP Lang and Lit, or a dual credit French class, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
just being able to provide a wide range of advanced courses is something that we are continually looking to do, because some students are very interested and excited about certain opportunities.
And if I can press this a little bit more about reducing barriers to opportunities for our multi-language learners, specifically, do we share this information with all of the teachers so they're opening up their thought process that sometimes it's natural to think if somebody isn't speaking fluently, you might not recognize the giftedness of that person, but to open up that thinking as teachers that we're looking for ways to measure the students able to go through more rigorous courses with that open mind. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, I think that really the key piece here is that we are providing opportunities for all students. And like even the second to last section is a really important piece. And as we have our Miss Sayas, our head of our multilingual learner department, and Veronica Lenzen, who oversees our high school special ed program, how are we providing access for all students? And that's something that we are constantly building as a district.
Okay.
Now, this also is for any student that is not in a specific pathway. Like if a student is into, like you said, arts, and they decided that they want to do that class, but they're not in the arts program, are they still eligible to choose that class?
So the only barrier that I would say that can be so the answer is yes, except there are some courses that have prerequisites. So I cannot take this dual credit theater class unless I have taken acting 1 and acting 2.
Mm-hmm.
If that, so
No.
that is the only, it's not a barrier as long as you have taken the prerequisites to take that course.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Likewise with, I keep thinking of math, but if you haven't had algebra 1 and 2, you couldn't take a pre-calculus class. So that would be, if there's an interest in it and they've had those classes, they could go forward.
There is prerequisites for even certain math classes, right? You have
Yes.
to have taken algebra 1 and algebra 2 before you can take the next component. And that is, true. And then there's some that are not. taking a ECE dual enrollment US history, AP US history course, there isn't necessarily that prerequisite because that's just a course you take in 10th grade.
Mhm.
Yes,
So
good point. That's a
so
good point. That some yes and
some
some no,
some
but it's
yes,
not
some
barrier.
no.
It's not a
Correct.
barrier for someone who is learning
Oh,
to speak English. You know,
I
it's,
think sometimes a barrier that we would see is teacher recommendation.
Mhm.
I think
yes.
that can be a barrier at times.
And we're trying to reduce that impact and open up the teacher's thinking too to possibilities, but reduce it in a sense of, as we said just a few paragraphs ago, that if a student or a parent would advocate for that child to take an advanced course, you're saying that this is how we do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob. Excuse me, Rob.
Problem.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my dog. I'm
That's
trying
all
to
right. Have a
find
wonderful
my
wonderful evening, everyone. I don't know if Ralph has any more on the agenda.
Oh, we have to move this forward, don't we?
Yeah, the policy itself, yeah.
So Mary Ellen, if you're comfortable with all the changes and discussion that we had this evening, motion to move this policy to the full board.
and I second that motion.
Okay, thank you guys. So we're all set. Have a good evening. Keep warm, everybody, and thank you for the extra time out of your day for this.
Thank you.
So much.
Mary Ellen.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good
night.
night, everyone.